So what reactions do you get from other entrepreneurs when they hear about your virtual team?
The same reactions that I had at first. One of the reactions is that possible? The other reaction is, it's not for me. It's probably very expensive, or I don't have time, or and others say, okay, what tasks do you ask them to do? And they're surprised that all the tasks that I mention are things that they do themselves. And they're also surprised that it's fairly affordable, because an entrepreneur, a single entrepreneur. I don't make a lot of money, and I couldn't hire anybody in my own country, in the Netherlands or in the US. It's just too expensive. But when you go to countries where education is good and the cost of living is much lower, like in Asia or Eastern Europe or South America, then you can find qualified people who are very eager to work. In fact, you're helping them, providing them with nice work. And they're very skilled. And when I explained to other entrepreneurs that I discovered that my new assistant can design and can do video editing, it's not what I hired her for, but it's a big bonus. And just the fact that you have extra hands that you can, delegate work to, it's just a life-changing event. And I know that a lot of entrepreneurs are inspired by my example and by examples of other people. And that's in fact why I decided to write this book, the Digital Delegation, to share all the secrets and all the mistakes I've made, all the tips I've discovered, to make this possible for more people, for more entrepreneurs, for more businesses to get the help they deserve. My name is Esther Jacobs. I'm from the Netherlands originally, but I travel around the world as a location independent entrepreneur. I have been doing that for more than 29 years. I've never worked for a boss. I've always been self-employed. And they call me the no excuses lady, because I only see opportunities where other people see challenges. And I give presentations, I give workshops, I help people how to write their book, I help people to become location independent, and anything that I like, I try to share with other people.
What role do virtual assistants play in your life and your business?
Well, basically, they are essential. They keep me alive. There were times where I had to do everything myself. And then whenever I had a new idea, which is quite often because I'm a creative person, I had to not only, come up with the idea and write the copy, but I had to do everything. I had to do all the technical things. I had to install everything, react to reactions. And for that reason, I often didn't follow up on my ideas. I did only like a small fraction of what I could have done. And now with virtual assistants, they do the tasks that are necessary, but that I don't want to do. And sometimes I don't even know how to. Right nowadays, we use systems that I don't even know how to use and I don't want to learn. And they do all the things in the background. And I can do what I'm good at, which is generating content and inspiring people. And they make sure that everything gets to where it's supposed to be, and that there's reactions when there should be reactions, and people receive what they ordered or what they were promised.
When did you first learn about virtual assistants?
My first introduction to the concept of virtual assistants was actually the book of the 4-Hour Workweek book by Timothy Ferriss. Many, many, many years ago, I was in the Caribbean reading this book in a hammock, and I was devouring everything I read because it was so close to my own lifestyle. But then I read that you could delegate or outsource certain tasks to virtual assistants at a fairly low cost and, fairly easily. And I was just, a whole new world opened up to me. And I started experimenting. And I actually hired the Indian firm that Timothy Ferriss recommends. And I did find some problems with that because it's an agency. So instead of working with one person, there were different people doing the tasks, and there were some communication issues. Like they never said it's not possible, or I don't understand your instructions. They always said yes. So then I realized maybe it's not the concept of virtual assistants that doesn't work, but maybe it's this way of working that doesn't work. And then I tried hiring individual assistants. I hired through Upwork. I hired people through my own network. I basically tried everything, I think. And I found good assistants everywhere and I found bad assistants everywhere. So it's just like in real life, you have to test, you have to have a good hiring process. And I must say, I wasn't good at that. I was just, whenever I met somebody who could help me and who was willing to help me, I was like, okay, yes, let's work together. And I would throw things, over the fence at them. And they were very enthusiastic when they were talking with me. And then a few days or weeks or months later, nothing happened. And it turned out they either didn't understand or they weren't so motivated anymore. And I got everything back, and then I got a bit demotivated and I actually hired somebody to help me hire somebody. And it turned out the secret is hire slow and fire fast, which I wasn't good at and I still am not. But at least I've learned that that's one of the secrets of working with virtual assistants.
What have you learned about working with virtual assistants since then?
I have learned so many things in the years that I've been working with virtual assistants. First of all, they are there. There's very good people, very eager, very willing, very talented, who will work for you and take a lot of work off your plate. There's also mediocre people or lazy people or people pretending to be something that they're not. And you have to find the good people and test them so they don't end up being like bad people. But apart from that, there's also good people who are willing and eager, who are just not good for you. And I realized when I had a click with somebody and when we had a nice conversation and they were enthusiastic, I was like, yeah, let's work together. And often you try to match up with people who are just like you. But I don't need another creative person with a lot of ideas who likes to start things. I need somebody who actually structures things and who finishes things. And those are very different kind of people. So I learned that you don't need to hire somebody who's just like you, but actually you need to hire somebody who's maybe very different from you, because they will like different things. They will finish what you don't finish, or they will be creative where you're not creative, or whatever. Just the complementarity is very, very important. And the hiring process, I've learned that however eager I am to work with somebody who can take some tasks off my plate, I have to put time into the hiring process, into the testing. Nowadays, I always give some test assignments. We do evaluations. And it's very, very important because the start may be good, but I hire for longer term relationships. And the same as dating, you have a coffee with somebody and you don't get married right away. So I try to look at it as a dating process. We have a coffee, we go to a movie, we go for a weekend away, and then maybe, after a while we move in together. But there's not going to be a marriage after the first coffee anymore, I promise.
What do you get your virtual assistants to do for you? Is it just business, or do you get into kind of other aspects of life as well?
I'm an entrepreneur, and my life and my private life and business are very intertwined. Like when I travel, it's both business and personal. And when I'm on social media, it's both business and personal. So everything is already a bit intertwined. So my virtual assistants help with whatever I need to do. So basically for my business, they do website things. For example, maintenance of my website. When I write a blog, I write the content. I'm a writer, so I don't let anybody else write my content. But they put the pictures in, they put it in a blog, they translate it, all those things that are not so difficult, but they need to be done. They know the programs that I use, like ActiveCampaign for email follow-up, email funnels, things like that. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I just want the right people to receive the right email. Design, when I design a workbook or a book or an ebook, they do the design. Some video editing. What else did I do? Manage my agenda, keep notes in the right places, organize files, very important. I can create 100,000 files, but I need somebody to structure them so that's easy to find them back. Making standard operating procedures, which is good for the current assistant, but also for the next assistant or for somebody else that I hire. so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And with documents in place and an SOP, it's easier. It becomes easier and easier. Now I've been doing this for a while to make my back office more structured. Travel bookings I do myself because I have my own way of doing that. But I also have them organized, for example, the files for my father who has Alzheimer. And, things need to be organized, need to be retrievable. When I make a newsletter for the building that I live in, I ask them to design the newsletter as well, to have like a brand design. So all the tricks that I use for my business, of course, I can ask them to do that for me personally as well.
And so just out of interest, you said you don't get your VAs to do your travel side of things. Why is that then?
I know a lot of VAs do travel things as well. But somehow I've always worked by myself. So I'm in the habit of doing things myself. And also in booking flights, I have my peculiarities. No, how do you say that? I have my specifics. And if an aisle seat is not available, maybe I don't want a window seat, but I want a seat more in front of the plane. So I find it so hard to explain. I don't want the cheapest flight anymore, but I don't want a night flight. And I don't like to leave early in the morning, but if the price difference is too big, then I take an early morning flight. It's impossible to explain. And nowadays it's so easy to go on Airbnb, go on Booking, go on airline sites to book something. And sometimes I ask my assistant if I have like a very complicated thing with a lot of research to be done, I can ask them to do the preliminary research. Like, are there days in August where it's cheaper to travel to Spain, for example? So it's a mix. And I try to find out what cost me less time to explain and has more added value for them to do, instead of having to explain as much as the work they are going to do. Then I think it's easier to do it myself. But maybe one day I'll try to write down my manual and they can also do the travel booking for me.
So what's the weirdest thing that you've got your VA to do for you?
I have to think about that. Oh, actually, it's a funny thing. I don't officially exist. I'm not registered anywhere. So I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to do any bookkeeping, any administration, which is incredible, which gives a lot of freedom. But in order to maintain that status, I have to prove that I spend less than 4 months a year in the Netherlands. So every time I travel, I have her put the days that I'm in the Netherlands or somewhere else in an Excel sheet, so that at the end of the year, she can tell me, you've been in the Netherlands 2.5 months, you've been in France 2 months, you've been in the USA 21 days. So she basically keeps my alibi for being location independent. Actually, on Fiverr.com, there's a lot of people offering very fun, creative videos and other stuff. And I had a video made for my mother of an Indian guy in a little Speedo tiger swim pants singing happy birthday to her from the jungle for $5.
What's your worst experience with a VA been?
One of the first VAs that I hired. So I started with this Indian agency from Timothy Ferris' book, and that didn't work out very well. And then after a while, I heard that people in the Philippines sometimes only make like $200 a month. So, and there was a website where you could find people who could work for you full time for $300 or $400. So I decided to find somebody and pay them like $500. I wanted to be generous. So I would find somebody who was dedicated. And I was living on a Caribbean island in a small house in the middle of nowhere. And I found a very nice lady from the Philippines. I had a click with her immediately. And she said, I also live in a small house on the beach with my husband. And she was very nice. And this was back when I didn't know you had to do a good testing and interviewing. And it was just, we had a click. And she started working for me. And I was paying her $500 a month. And in the beginning, of course, you have to do some onboarding. So sometimes she wasn't very responsive or it took some more time, but I was thinking she's just learning. So I was telling her a lot of stuff and sending her a lot of stuff and asking her to read a lot of stuff. But after a while, I expected to get some things back. And she was very slow. And some things I got back were very superficial, like she did them in 5 minutes. And then when I put some pressure on her, suddenly she would deliver very good work. And I was like, you see, it's in there. She can do it. But after like 2.5 months, I realized there's something going on. And I figured out that she was probably also working for somebody else full time, that she was just dividing her time to the person who was asking the most, who was putting the most pressure at the moment. So I said, I don't know if it's going to work, so I will still pay you this month, and I hope you can finish, the task that you're doing for me. And I never heard from her again. She just disappeared. She didn't react to her email address anymore. So she got her $1,500, did hardly any tasks. And for her, that must have been a business model, because it always takes 1 or 2 or 3 months for somebody to find out that it's not working. So yeah, it's sad, but this is also a way to make money. And I learned a lot from it, that you have to really do an onboarding process, ask for references. And I was just too eager. So that's a big lesson that I've learned.
What's been your best experience with a VA?
Well, I almost daily am thankful that I have VAs working for me. When I'm traveling and I land and I, look at my email and I see that all the tasks are done, all my systems that are working. When I get an email from a VA like, hey, I was looking at this and I thought maybe we could make a social media post about this. Or I was looking at all the people who looked at a certain page on your website, and why don't we send them an email about this topic? Or one of my VAs who is very creative. She knows how Canva works, and she just starts designing things for me in like a brand guide. She developed a brand guide, and now everything I send out looks a lot better. And she even designed the latest workbook that I created. Normally, I have to hire a designer, and then for every change, you have to contact that designer again. And she designed it in Canva. So I'm daily surprised at all the things that a VA can do, and I'm daily very thankful for the people that are helping me.
Do you ever wish that your virtual assistant wasn't virtual?
That's a good question. I've had that in the past when I still had receipts, for example, that needed to be entered into Excel. And in order for my virtual assistant to be able to work with the receipts, I had to take pictures of the receipts. I had to scan them. So it still involved work for me. And I wish I could just give this pile of receipts to an assistant that would then log them. But I don't do any receipts anymore because I'm location independent. So that's not the case. But in some other cases, I notice that when you work together with somebody, when you actually sit next to each other and you can point something out on the screen and you can brainstorm together, that works well when you're in person. But you can also do that via Zoom. You can share screen. You can say, okay, let's work on this topic, you on your side, me on this side, and then, hey, can I ask you a question? Can you have a look at this? So you find solutions for, having a virtual assistant. But the main reason that I would like to meet my virtual assistants is actually to meet them. So one of my assistants, she's now my online business manager. We had been working together for 1.5 or 2 years before we finally met in Bangkok. And it was so nice to meet somebody for the first time that you know so well. And now I have a new assistant since a year, and she lives in Serbia. And I'm already trying to look at when can I travel to Serbia, or when can I invite her over to meet her, and then have some time to work together physically. And I think that will help the cooperation afterwards, because you've met, you know each other. But I'm surprised how well virtual working together works.
How have you handled kind of trusting your virtual assistant with sensitive information like passwords or kind of bank card information, things like that? How do you handle that?
Many entrepreneurs who hear about virtual assistants for the first time ask me the question about safety and security and trust. And they're like, well, I don't give out my credit card details or my passwords. And my statement in this is very simple. If you don't trust them with your passwords, do you trust them with your business? You ask them to do work for you, and if you don't enable them, they can't do the work for you. And with credit card details, it's very easy. If somebody uses your credit cards, which is not what you agree to, you can take it back within 30 days. And imagine an assistant who's working for you, who has a job, who makes money, who has like a long-term perspective, decides to buy something with your credit card for, let's say, $200. And I discover it and I get the money back and I fire her. So what's the value? What's the win for her? So I trust the people that I hire. And fortunately, I've never had problems with that. I've always been positively surprised how delicate they are, and how do you say, how they appreciate the trust, and how conscientious they are with my sensitive information. And I've only had good experiences just enabling people and having them do things for me. So for me, it's not an issue. And this is also how I am in life. It's better to assume that everybody, you can trust everybody. And then if somebody disappoints you one time, then it's just an exception, instead of assuming that you can trust anybody and then making your life complicated every single day.
What do you do when your assistant wants to leave and take another job?
First, I cry. Because usually, you put so much time and effort into onboarding somebody. And that's also one of my problems. Even if somebody turns out not to be perfect for the job, I don't want them to leave because we've already invested so much. So I think I carry on too long with somebody who's not perfect for the job. And that's where I'm learning to hire slow and to fire fast, but that's still difficult. If a good assistant wants to leave, it has happened, and my experience is that people move on. You work together for a few years, and then they move on to something else. And if you keep that in mind, then sometimes you can offer them this new opportunity. Like, one of my virtual assistants became my online business manager and some kind of consultant. If they really want to leave, it's good to ask them as one of their last tasks to update the standard operating procedures, maybe to help look for the new hire that will replace them, and maybe even onboard the new hire. That way they have a good feeling that they've finished everything in a nice way, and the new person gets onboarded. And the ideal situation would be if you can make an agreement that you can still contact them for a few hours per week or per month. And logically, that will be less and less. And I would just pay them for that. So the best transition is a smooth transition in which the assistant is also involved in onboarding the new person.
How have the virtual assistants made a difference to your life and to your business?
I think virtual assistants brought back the pleasure I have in working, because I love creating things, but the pressure of having to execute them often limited me in what I decided to take on. And they've also helped me scale my business, because if you want to do more of something, there's also more work, and there's also more work that I don't like all the back office work. So it enabled me to think bigger, but also to stay in my strength and to only do the things where I have the most added value. And of course, it's not perfect yet. I do much too much myself, and not everything is perfectly organized and structured, but that's also the way I am and the way my business is. I'm mostly creative. I don't want to run a big business. I don't want to grow my business. I just want to make other people happy with the knowledge that I've acquired about writing books and giving presentations and living a free life. So the theme of freedom is very important in my life and in my business. And in fact, also in the way I work with my people. I want them to be autonomous. I want them to do what they want to do, what they like to do, where they have most added value. So nothing is ever fixed. Everything is constantly flowing, and they have to get used to that as well. But in fact, for some of them, it's also their ideal job. And for me, it's nice to work with motivated people and together create beautiful things that can inspire other people. So I'm very, very, very happy with my virtual assistants.
What do you wish you'd have had, when you were first starting out and when you've been hiring VAs?
A few things. First, I would have liked to know where to hire them. So I started in India and the Philippines, and I wasn't too happy with it. And I find that most of the people I work well with are from like more Western countries, Eastern Europe, the Netherlands, Australia, South Africa, things like that. So where to hire, I would have liked to know. The hiring process, like I actually hired somebody to help me design a hiring process because I just didn't know what steps to take. And templates. Somebody borrowed me their like job ad, and I adapted it to suit my needs, to show my business and what I wanted. And that's how I found my current assistant on Jobrack. So a friend, an entrepreneur friend, had already posted for a virtual assistant. I used her ad as a template and adapted it to mine. And ever since, I've given my job ad to several other entrepreneurs who have used that to create their job ad. So I think working from a template helps you not to have to reinvent the wheel. So those are the things I wish I would have had when I started. And that's also why I now put all those things and much more into this guide, Digital Delegation, that I'm creating.